What is up? Look, for 800 years, the world government has told the world that the empty throne represented equality. No single king, no supreme ruler, no country standing above all the others. The original monarchs supposedly placed their weapons around that throne and promised that none of them or their descendants ever sit there. Every important part of that story is a lie. The throne is not empty. Imu sits on it. The founding families are not equal. Imu rules over them. In One Piece chapter 1189, this reveals that the weapons placed around the throne were never surrendered either. They were not destroyed. They were not returned to their kingdom. Summers says they were laid to rest around the empty throne. Yet 800 years later, Imu can still summon them. The Holy Knights can still inherit them, right? And those same weapons are now being used one after the other against Monkey D. Luffy, right? The first blade pins Luffy against the Adam Tree and begins feeding on his life force. Jinbei immediately notices that Luffy's haki is weakening, not Usopp, right? Usopp did not catch that. Then Imu pulls out Fragarash, right? Then Imu raises Shintian and refers to it as the third blade or the third weapon. Imu is not just attacking Luffy. Imu is counting through an arsenal. And before the next blow lands, Imu tells Luffy that he should feel honored to die by the arms that constructed this world. But what does that actually mean? Did those weapons construct the current world by building it? Or did they construct it by destroying the person who protected the world that existed before it? Because Luffy may not be the first Nika those weapons have pierced. And the empty throne may be hiding the reason they were never removed. Anyway, welcome back to the club. Welcome back to the club. I appreciate you guys for coming back. It's free to join the club, right? All you have to do is hit the like, subscribe button down below, okay? Today we're connecting Luffy's execution, the 19 world weapons, the Black Nika from the Harley text, Doflamingo's national treasure, the frozen chamber beneath Marijoa, and the true purpose of the empty throne. Because the throne may not only be a seat, it may be a lock. So the first thing we have to acknowledge is that Imu had already won. The chapter practically announces it. Luffy, after one hit from Imu, one hit, he cannot move, he cannot defend himself, his haki is dropping, he's still in gear 5, but Imu has completely taken control of the situation. So if the goal were to simply kill Luffy, why not finish him immediately, right? Why switch weapons, right? Why switch through the arsenal? Why keep him conscious? Why start talking about Ace and Sabo while he's still pinned there? And most importantly, why count the weapons? This is what makes this scene feel less like a battle and more like a process. First, Luffy's body is restrained, then his life is drained, basically his life force, then his haki is weakened, then Imu attacks his name, his identity, his brother, and then another weapon pierces him. Then a third weapon is raised for what looks like the execution blow. And throughout all of this, Luffy does not say a single word. That may not sound like a major detail until you remember who we're talking about. This is Luffy, Monkey D. Luffy. He talks while he's winning. He talks while he's losing. He talks with food in his mouth, right? He's probably talked while technically unconscious before. But here, right now, nothing. No comeback, no insult, no laugh. He cannot even answer when Imu mocks Ace and Sabo. For a character whose entire existence is about expressing freedom, that silence is disturbing. And yet Gear 5 has not disappeared. The white hair is still there, clouds are still there. Gear 5's form still remains active. So Nika is still visible, but everything that makes Nika dangerous has been suppressed. Luffy cannot move freely, he cannot reshape the battlefield, right? He cannot laugh, he cannot protect everyone or anyone. He cannot imagine a ridiculous solution and somehow make it work. Gear 5 is still present. Freedom inside Gear 5 has been taken away. And maybe that is the entire purpose of these weapons, right? Maybe they are not simply trying to damage Nika. Maybe they are designed to remove Nika piece by piece. So Saint Summers does not call these the 19 royal swords. He calls them the 19 world weapons. That name makes them sound less like a decoration and more like a hidden infrastructure of the world government. And when Imu revives Saint Summers and Saint Killingham through Omen, they gain access to the weapons belonging to their respective houses. House Shepherd receives Gram, House Rimushifu receives Longinus. So these weapons are connected to bloodlines, but the descendants do not appear to control that connection by themselves. Imu activates them. The weapons belongs to the families, yes, but the key belongs to Emu. And I do not think all the 19 weapons perform the same function either. We've seen that with the 3 weapons that's been pulled so far. That will be like Emu owning the Void Sentry's version of an inventory screen with 19 weapons that do exactly the same thing. And at that point, just make one really large sword, right? I think every kingdom may have contributed a different answer to the same solution. How do you kill Joy Boy? Because Joy Boy's powers was never only physical strength. His body operated beyond normal rules. His haki survived for 800 years inside Emet. His will survived the destruction of his kingdom. His promise survived through the poneglyphs. The Nika devil fruit escaped the world government for centuries, and the heartbeat connected to that power can restart after the user has already been declared dead. So maybe one weapon drained Joy Boy's life, another weakened his haki, another stopped his body from changing, another prevented his wounds from healing, another attacked his mind and identity, and maybe one of them did something worse. Maybe it separated Joy Boy from the power of Nika. That would mean the founders not simply stabbed him 19 times. They dismantled, they attacked the different parts of Joy Boy that refused to stay dead. Now, there's a simpler explanation. These could just be ancestral weapons with different abilities, and Emu is showing them off because Oda wants to establish how powerful the world government really is. That is possible. But once Emu starts counting through them while using them on the new Nika and then calls them the weapons that constructed the world, the historical connections become very difficult to ignore, especially when we look at some of the names. Now, I do not think every weapon's name gives us an exact ability. Some of the references are much stronger than others, but 4 of them immediately stand out. The first is Gram. Now, Gram is the sword associated with Sigurd killing the dragon Fafnir. And what attack the Samurs block with Gram? Zoro's dragon damnation. Oda gave the dragon killing sword to the person blocking an attack with the dragon in the name. At this point, he's basically circling the reference for us, right? That would mean Gram specifically counters dragon-related techniques. It could hint that House Shepherd once fought a dragon-associated faction during the Void Century, or it may eventually connect to the original meaning of the Celestial Dragon, because I do not believe the current Celestial Dragons invented that title out of nowhere. They may have stolen it from someone or something that existed before. Then we have Longinus. Longinus is associated with the spear that pierced the sacred body during an execution. That gives the name imagery connected to an empire, divine blood, and confirming the death of someone treated as holy. And now Longinus appears in the chapter where the secret ruler of the world is slowly piercing Nika with the weapon of the founding kingdom. This is one of the strongest connections in the entire book. Killing him also uses Longinus against Sanji, which creates the interesting contrast, right? A supposedly sacred weapon against the man using Diablo Jambe and Ifrit Jambe. A royal weapon against someone who rejected the royal bloodline he was born into. That could matter later on, but for this theory, the most important point is that Longinus is associated with piercing a sacred figure during an execution, and that is Jesus Christ, right? Then there's Shintian. Shintian is a warrior connected to fighting after being decapitated. He lost his head and still refused to stop. That connection almost perfectly connects to what Omen does. The Holy Knights can be killed, return, regenerate, and continue fighting after their normal lives should have ended. Emu then raises Shintian as the 3rd weapon over Luffy, right? Maybe Shintian represents the stage dealing with what continues after death. Longinus pierces the sacred body. Shintian controls or destroys the body that refuses to stop afterwards. Then we got Muramasa. Muramasa is the most speculative weapon here, but it may also be the most important. Later legends describe Muramasa's blade as cursed, bloodthirsty, or disastrous for ruling family. But what if the world weapon does not merely cut flesh? What if Muramasa cuts connections? The connection between power and identity, between imagination and conscience, between the body and free will, between Joy Boy and Nika. Because Emu has a method for taking control of powerful people. The problem is that method may not work with a person who has absolute freedom. Now, we all know Domi Reversi, and Domi Reversi allows Emu to take a powerful body and turn it into an obedient demonic weapon. We have seen what it does to King Harold. We have seen the danger of what happened to Shuri. The target becomes stronger, but their freedom is overwritten. That works on ordinary people, but Nika is not an ordinary person. Nika represents freedom itself. So how does Imu reverse freedom? How do you command a power whose entire identity is refusing command? Maybe you cannot. Maybe Domi Reversi failed against Joy Boy. And if Imu could not control Joy Boy's will, Muramasa may have been used to cut that will away from that power. Think about what that will create. White Nika would be imagination guided by freedom, joy, liberation, freedom, right? Friendship, compassion, the ability to make impossible things happen because the person using that power wants others to be free. But Black Nika would be the same imagination without the guidance. Nightmare, rage, destructive creativity, body changing without limits, but no longer connected to the person who gave the power meaning. White Nika may be imagination guided by freedom. Black Nika may be the same imagination after freedom was cut out. And if the dark Nika-like figure in the second world of the Harley text is not a completely separate god, maybe it represents what remained after Joy Boy was divided. But the original power, right? The original power or the original body remained behind in a corrupted state. Now, I want to be very clear. We do not know Muramasa's abilities, right? The Black Nika and the Harley may be symbolic, and Domi Reversi may work very differently from what we currently understand. But the idea that Imu could not dominate Nika, so the founders had to separate Nika's powers from Joy Boy's will, fits the larger pattern of this chapter. And even if they succeeded, that creates another problem. What do you do with a body and power you cannot safely control or destroy? And that takes us to Redatasker, freezing Shuri, and that may look like a small detail, but I think it may explain the ice beneath Marijoa. Shuri's body is dangerous. Brooke believes her real personality is still intact, but Redatasker does not have time to wait for a family therapy session. From the squirrel's perspective, that body is dangerous, so freeze it. Stop the movement, stop the transformation, preserve the body without allowing either Shuri or Imu's control to act through it. Now apply that logic to Joy Boy. What if Imu could not control Nika? What if the weapons could weaken his body but could not permanently stop it from changing? What if the heartbeat could restart? What if killing him normally risked releasing something worse? Then the world government could need another layer of containment. Ice. See, Nika represents movement, rhythm, heat, transformation, right? Freedom, we know all about. A body that refuses to remain inside one shape or one set of physical rules. Ice does the opposite. Stillness, silence, preservation, restriction, one fixed form, whatever you want to put. You cannot put ordinary chains around imagination, but you may be able to freeze the body through which imagination enters the world. And that makes the frozen chamber beneath Marijoa incredibly suspicious. We've seen the giant straw hat preserved in the ice, right? But what if the hat is not the prison? What if it belongs to the prison? And we already know who the prisoner is. Maybe Marijoa needed the world's most expensive freezer because Redatasker was unavailable 800 years ago. But we all know that's not true. Jokes aside, parallel is there. Shuri is frozen because the body is too dangerous to leave active. So what body beneath Marijoa was too dangerous for Imu to leave active? The weapons weaken it, the ice keeps it from changing. And something above it keeps the entire thing hidden. Maybe Black Nika killed the warrior Elbap. Let that sink in too. Now, this brings us back to Summer's wording. The 19 weapons were laid to rest around the empty throne. That phrase is strange. Weapons do not need to rest. Bodies do. So maybe these weapons were never retired. Maybe the original job never ended. The swords seen around the throne could be physical anchors, representations, or access points connected to the true world weapons. The weapons themselves may still be suppressing something, may still be draining life force, may still be weakening Haki, may still be preventing regeneration, stopping a heartbeat from releasing, keeping Black Nika dormant, and Omen may allow Imu to send weapon powers to proper descendants while the source remains connected to the larger system. That could explain how Summers uses Gram, Killingham uses Longinus, and Imu appears to have access to the arsenal. The descendants receive the extension. The source remains at Marijoa. The weapon belongs to the house, but everything still runs through Imu. And if that is true, then the weapons may not be surrounding an empty chair because of some symbolic promise. They may be maintaining something the throne was built to hide. We're not revealing what that is yet, but I think you guys have a clue. But remember the language though, lay to rest, because that line, I believe, becomes much more important later on. So now let's jump back, okay? We have to now deal with the most personal part of the chapter. Imu does not only call Luffy we, Imu says his name fully. He completes the name Monkey D. Luffy, such a detestable name. Then Imu brings up his brothers Ace and Sabo. Ace was killed by the Navy, Sabo joined the Revolutionary Army, and somehow these three people with different names became brothers. Why does Imu feel bothered? Why does that bother Imu? The immediate answer is psychological warfare. Luffy's strength is tied to the people he loved. His crew, his brothers, his promises, the people he wants to protect, the people he wants to free. So while the world weapons attack Luffy's body and haki, Imu attacks the emotional reason Luffy keeps finding the strength to stand back up. Imu is not only draining Luffy's power, Imu is attacking the reason Luffy keeps finding power. But there may be a different reason the different surnames matter. Imu's entire system is built on inherited houses. House Shepherd receives Gram, House Rimoshifu receives Longinus. The Celestial Dragons inherit authority from their surnames or their last name. Omen reconnects descendants to the weapons of their bloodline. Then Luffy, Ace, and Sabo become brothers through choice. Not shared surname, no shared biological father, no royal system approving the friendship or relation. They simply chose one another. In Imu's world, Imu is asking what house do they belong to. Luffy's family asks who you chose to stand beside. And that kind of bond cannot be controlled through genealogy. Maybe that is why Imu finds it so insulting. Or maybe Luffy's brother minds Imu of something older. Joy Boy, Davy D. Jones, Imu. I'm not saying those three were definitely brothers. They could have been crewmates, friends, acquaintances, rival heirs, former allies. Imu's reaction sounds personal enough that I do not think we should ignore that possibility. Maybe Imu does not hate Luffy's brotherhood because it's strange. Maybe Imu hates it because Imu has always seen what three people connected by choice can do to the world. If the royal houses can inherit swords through bloodlines, then I believe I finally understand why or how Luffy is able to also inherit Gomu Gomu no Red Hawk, right? Gomu Gomu no Red Rock, Gomu Gomu no Rock Gatling. I finally understand that. Inherited will. It goes deeper than I find like you actually think. Oda is, nah. If the houses can inherit swords, Luffy and his family, which is his three brothers, maybe including the Straw Hat, but they're Nakama. His two brothers, Ace and Sabo, could be able to inherit their will, which he's already done because we've seen that with Ace. Imu also makes a point of saying that the entire name, Monkey D. Luffy, the safest explanation, right? The D is what she's calling, or Imu is calling the testicle, because the name D are the natural enemies of the people who call themselves God. But Monkey's family may matter too, right? God repeatedly rejected the authority and direct service of the Celestial Dragons. Dragon created the Revolutionary Army. Luffy awakened Nika. 3 generations of the same family challenged the rulers above the world in 3 completely different ways. That may not be a coincidence. And symbolically, every part of Luffy's identity opposes Imu's system. The D challenges the gods. The Monkey family repeatedly produces rebels. And Luffy carries the power of Nika too? The full name may tell Imu that everything they feared has returned in one person. The wrong bloodline, the wrong initial, the wrong devil fruit, and a chosen family that cannot be controlled through the founding house. Imu knows what Luffy represents, but Doflamingo may have discovered what Imu was protecting. See, Doflamingo told us that Marijoa contained a national treasure, and he connected the usefulness of that treasure to the Opi no Mi. That should immediately make us suspicious. Why would a surgical devil fruit matter if the power were just sword, crown, machine, or a giant laser cannon? Opi no Mi manipulates bodies, organs, consciousness, personalities, life. It can separate things that should not be separated. It can move a person's identity into another body, and it can perform the operation connected to the perpetual youth surgery. So maybe the national treasure is biological, right? A body, heart, consciousness, something alive that should not be alive. And Doflamingo may have wanted immortality before approaching it. Or maybe maybe he wanted to transfer his personality into whatever body was being preserved. The treasure could be Joy Boy's body, it could be Black Nika, it could be Imu's original body, it could be the source of Omen, or it could be the entire system, the body, the weapon, ice, and the connection to the throne. And the giant frozen straw hats may not be the treasure by itself. It may be an identifying object, a key, a mark, something carrying Haki, or simply the first clue Oda showed us from a much larger frozen chamber. Doflamingo may not have discovered a valuable object beneath Marijoa. He may have discovered a patient. And if you knew about a preserved body, chapter 1189 may be showing us how that body ended up there. Now, let's reconstruct what happened 800 years ago. Joy Boy opposed the 20 kingdoms. The founders tried to defeat him normally and failed. Sidomi Reversi cannot override the will of someone who represents absolute freedom, so the kingdoms contributed their ancestral weapons. One drained Joy Boy's life, another weakened his heart. Longinus pierced his sacred body. Stigma may preserve wounds Nika could otherwise reshape or recover from. Muramasa may separate Joy Boy's will from the raw power of Nika. Xingtian may deal with whatever continues fighting after death. Tohu and Bohu may connect to the destruction and erasure of the old world itself. And the remaining weapons suppress whatever still remains or refuses to disappear. Then, because even that is not enough, the body is frozen, not because Joy Boy is sadly dead, but because Joy Boy is too dangerous to be allowed to change. And now, look at what Imu does to Luffy. Luffy is pinned upright, his life force is drained, his haki is weakened, his identity is mogged, right? His emotional bonds are attacked, multiple world weapons are summoned. Imu counts the sequence, then raises what looks like the execution strike. Imu may not be testing weapons on Luffy. Imu may be remembering. This may be the process that constructed the world government. Not because the world builds the Red Line or designed the Pangea Castle, they constructed the current political world by removing the person who stood in the way of its creation. Joy Boy's defeat allowed the world government to exist, and now Imu is trying to perform that same execution on the person who inherited his heartbeat. But the theory still has a problem. There were 20 rulers, there are 19 weapons. Lily did not join the other royal families at Marijoa, so where is the Nefertari weapon? And what did her absence change? We still need to compare this with the larger theory about Lily's power. Maybe Lily's abilities and the missing weapons are the same thing. Maybe the power that scattered the poneglyphs was the weapon belonging to House Nefertari. But if those ideas do not match, then Lily may have possessed two separate advantages: a devil fruit and a world weapon. One could have moved the poneglyphs across the world, which I believe is the devil fruit. The other could have disrupted Joy Boy's execution. Maybe, right? Because maybe 19 weapons were enough to kill his body, enough to destroy the kingdom, enough to erase his name from recorded history. But without the 20th weapon, they cannot erase everything. His haki survived, his will survived, the Nika devil fruit escaped, the drums of liberation returned, the poneglyphs preserved his promise. Lily may not have saved Joy Boy's life, she may have saved the part of him that could return. And that may explain why Imu remains so focused on Lily and Vivi. Vivi could carry the bloodline connected to the one weapon Imu never absorbed in the system, the missing key that can either complete the seal or break it. So now let's go back to the empty throne, but do not look at it as a chair. Look at everything underneath it: a massive staircase, the elevated platform, the thick foundation. Look at the amount of hidden space beneath that structure. Why does a symbolic chair need all of that? Why have the weapons remain around it for 800 years? Why keep it around it for 800 years? Why does Imu sit directly above that place where Summer says they were laid to rest? Why is the frozen chamber also beneath Marijoa? Why would Doflamingo need the Opi Opi no Mi to control the national treasure? Maybe the throne room is not only a political monument. Maybe the architecture was built around a containment site, right? The weapons keep the prisoner weak. The ice keeps the prisoner still. Platform hides the chamber, and the throne controls the entire system. Summer says the weapons were laid to rest around the empty throne. But what if the weapons were not the only things laid to rest there? What if the reason the weapons never left is because their victim never left either? What if the empty throne is not only a throne? What if it's a lid? The staircase hides the entrance. The platform covers the chamber. The ice keeps the body from transforming. The 19 world weapons remain connected as a sealing state. And beneath the king of the world, the man whose defeats created the world, Joy Boy. The weapons may have been laid to rest around the throne because Joy Boy was laid to rest beneath it. Except this may not be a grave, it may be a prison. 800 years ago, the founders could not control Nika. They could not permanently erase Joy Boy, so they had to break him apart. So Joy Boy's liberating will escaped through inherited will, haki, and the Nika fruit. But his original body, or the corrupted body, or Nika's black corrupted body and power left inside of it remained behind. The founders froze it, they kept the world weapons connected to it. Then they constructed the throne room over the chamber. The public story said the weapons represented equality. The hidden truth may be that every weapon represents participation in the same execution. And Emu took the seat above it all, and that changes Doflamingo's national treasure too, if y'all think about it. The treasure may not be one object, it may be the full containment system. Joy Boy's body, or Joy Boy's frozen body, Black Nika, the giant straw hat, the 19 weld weapon, Omen, and whatever power Emu has been extracting, suppressing, or controlling for 800 years. The Opi Opi no Mi could allow someone to operate on that system, remove the weapons without destroying the body, separate Black Nika from Joy Boy, transfer a consciousness into the prisoner, break the connection to Omen, or steal control to the entire system away from Emu. The empty throne may be the lock, the staircase may be the lid, and Joy Boy may be the prisoner underneath both of them. Emu may have spent 800 years ruling the world from the top of Joy Boy's prison. And that makes Gabon's entrance much more important. See, Gabon did not simply block one axe. If Emu was repeating Joy Boy's execution, Gabon interrupted the sequence before it could continue. Before the remaining weapons were used, think about it. This is how Roger was executed. Before Luffy's imagination was completely suppressed, before Emu could finish what the founders started 800 years ago, Gabon may have realized the weapons, right? Roger learned the truth at Laugh-Tale, so maybe Gabon knows what they did to Joy Boy. Maybe he knows the true source of the arsenal, and he knows that it is not an Elbaf. It's actually beneath the empty throne. And maybe his greatest contribution is not defeating Emu in a straight fight. It's explaining what Luffy is actually fighting. Because the final war may not be won by simply hitting Emu with a bigger punch like he did to Kaido. The Alliance may have to destroy the throne, disconnect the world weapons, break Omen's control over the founding house, recover Lily's missing weapon, release or purify Black Nika, and expose the prisoners beneath Marijoa to the entire world. Gabon did not simply save Luffy from Xingtian. He may have stopped history from repeating itself. See, I already talked too much. One Piece chapter 1189 may have shown us the crime that created the world government. The founders could not control Nika, they could not permanently erase Joy Boy, so they attacked him in stages. They drained his life, they weakened his haki, they restricted his imagination, they even separated his will from his power. And then what? They froze what remained and built their new world over that prison. But Lily's absence left that system incomplete. Joy Boy's body may have been contained. His will escaped. His haki survived. His fruits returned. And 800 years later, the same hot beak awakened. Inside who? Monkey D. Luffy. This is why Luffy will never become the king of the world by sitting on the empty throne. He will destroy it. And when the staircase and the foundation collapse, the world may finally see Joy Boy's frozen body, Black Nika, the 19 sealing weapon, Marijoa's national treasure, and the original crime hidden for 800 years. Because for 800 years, the world was told the empty throne represented freedom and no single king. Throne may represent the exact opposite. A ruler above, a prisoner below, and 19 weapons keeping the world between them. Anyway, I've spoken too much. What you guys think? Were the 19 world weapons designed to destroy different parts of Nika? Did Muramasa separate Joy Boy's free will from Black Nika? And is Joy Boy's original body still frozen beneath the empty throne? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Let me know if you mess with this theory. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and don't forget to watch my next video and other videos I've already made on the channel. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Appreciate you all. I'll catch you on the next one.